This week, we welcome Mike Ernst, Vice President of Sales Engineering at ExtraHop, to discuss cyber, the fifth domain of war. In the Leadership and Communications section, top 5 CISO demands and challenges, the 7 deadly sins of leadership, 3 key principles to become a successful remote leader, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Monitoring and maintaining compliance is a never-ending struggle with a high price of failure. Firemon helps customers meet complex and varying compliance requirements. Firemon has fully customizable reporting, analytics, assessments, and dashboards to meet the compliance needs of any organization. With Firemon, compliance reports take a tenth of the time, and real-time continuous compliance eliminates the anxiety and headaches of audit preparation. Improve security outcomes by improving security operations with Firemon. Visit securityweekly.com/Firemon to learn more. Cyber risk and compliance automation is finally here. Legacy GRC systems cannot support the powerful, real-time automation and oversight that organizations require to take risks that matter to succeed. CyberSync continuous control automation ingests data from the IT GRC stack to update controls against regulatory requirements and risks in real time, delivering insights and visibility. See how members of the Fortune 500 are saving millions annually by visiting securityweekly.com/CyberSync. Cybercriminals are working overtime. Last year in the fourth quarter alone, phishing attacks disguised as COVID testing information increased by 521%. Barracuda has identified 13 types of email threats and how cybercriminals use them to steal money from your company or personal information from your employees and customers. Find out about the 13 email threat types and how Barracuda can provide complete email protection for your teams, your customers, and your reputation. Get your free ebook at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 262, recorded May 9th, 2022. I am your host, Matt Alderman, in the Texas heat. Woo! It's been hot this weekend. Joining remotely are my co-hosts. First, in the rainy, cool Rhode Island weather pattern, Mr. Jason Albuquerque.
It got chilly here in New England. Southern New England's cold. You don't want to come here. But, oh, wait a minute. You are coming here.
I am. Yeah, I got to come into studio, so I'll be there. It'll be a relief because it won't be 90 plus degrees.
We should just switch spots for a few days.
There you go. Also joining me from the Texas heat is Mr. Ben Carr. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Matt. Good to see you again on this fine Monday. Not too hot in Austin, but was hot over the weekend for sure.
Oh, yeah. I was telling everybody, we left lunch yesterday. It was 100 degrees. We broke 100. We went straight to the pool and just swam. That's what you do in the heat. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. Do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover on one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. Don't send me an email because we'll just send you to the form. We review those often and we'll reach out to you once reviewed. This segment is sponsored by ExtraHop. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. Mike Ernst is a cybersecurity veteran who leads a global team of highly skilled sales engineers that work directly with customers and prospects, helping them improve their security defenses with the innovative technology. Mike is often engaged with customers working to solve the complex and mission-critical business problems that Fortune 1000 and Global 2000 companies face. Mike has spent more than a decade as an expert in network-based analytics and problem solving and is now applying that foundation to next-generation security investigation and response. Mike, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Wow, that was quite the intro. I got to thank my marketing team for that. Great to be here, guys.
Yeah, I even trim it down a little bit. I try to keep it a little more succinct, Mike. So as we think about investigation, response, we think about what's going on in the world right now, a lot of angles we can take on this one, right? We're primarily going to focus on Shields Up, the CISA guidance that came out right after Russia decided to attack Ukraine, because there was concern that there might be some retaliation from Russia around sanctions and other things. But we haven't really seen that much play out, have we? At least not in the States, anyways.
No, I mean, hey, everybody reacted the same way. I did too. We did too. I mean, you have a country that's arguably the most advanced kind of cyber attacker in the world, both on the criminal organization side and the nation state side. And now, we're kind of in a pseudo conflict directly with them. And everyone was worried that in addition to the day-to-day cyber criminal activity that we're seeing, that we'd see more. From more advanced, more sophisticated, more nation-state level threat actors. And no, we haven't seen that. I mean, it continues to be business as usual in the cyber criminal world, by which I mean bad and active and unfortunate for a lot of agencies and companies worldwide. But we haven't seen that, what I'll call that next shoe to drop.
Yeah, and I think CISA, in their recommendation, look, CISA's been making a lot of progress on this front for a while, right? With the increased ransomware and the normal day-to-day activities, they've been putting out a lot of good guidance on helping organizations prepare or try to get prepared for that inevitability of getting a ransomware attack. And so Shields Up was kind of almost, I don't know how new it really was in the guidance, because this is common sense guidance. Like, reduce the likelihood of an intrusion, prepare yourself, test your program. Like, it's the basics. There's nothing, I didn't see anything in the guidance that's really new or shocking. That's stuff we should be doing anyways, isn't it?
So, yes, there is a bit of a kind of do your job aspect to the guidance, but I think, they did a really good job of making it concise and actionable. And, and as a Star Trek Next Generation fan myself, I love that they used Shields Up as the kind of call to action. But if you look in there is some of the kind of standard stuff that you've always been supposed to be doing already, like enabling multi-factor authentication for privileged access. They did sprinkle in some things that we feel like are new and novel and pushing customers in the right direction. And obviously, from ExtraHop's perspective, our favorite line was where they said you should be focused on identifying and quickly assessing any unusual or unexpected network behavior.
Yeah, that it's always good to know where the anomalies are in your network, right? They also talk a little bit about monitoring cloud services, which ExtraHop has done a lot with over the past couple years, and tapping into that. It talks about just remote access, another area that taps into the network. So there's actually a few areas here where you get some very interesting guidance that kind of fits into your guys' wheelhouse above and beyond, fix all your vulnerabilities, deploy multi-factor authentication, do your basic cyber hygiene, configuration management, etc.
Exactly, totally. And if you look at the way they frame it, they talk, everything uses intrusion, reduce the likelihood of a damaging intrusion, take steps to quickly detect an intrusion, ensure you're prepared to respond to an intrusion. The common thread, and this is something that we're seeing the market accept in general, is you're going to have intrusions. And that's a bit of a change in perspective, in that historically cybersecurity has been about building up walls, lots of walls. We need to have as many perimeter defenses as possible, as many tools as we have to keep the bad guys out. And look, you should still endeavor to keep them out, but you should also be prepared for the likelihood that they're going to get in. And that's a different set of questions. That's a different set of techniques. That's a different set of tools. And that's I feel like there's a slow but notable shift in perspective, both on the government guidance side and on the customer security side.
Has the industry moved away from the concept of we can prevent everything and we really need good detection and response capabilities? Because remember, in the early days of information security, before we even called it cybersecurity, a lot of the focus was on prevention. Have we realized that we really can't prevent an intrusion or an attack? And therefore, if you don't have the right detection and response capabilities, you're kind of in trouble these days?
I don't think we're totally there yet. I think we've made progress. But at the same time, you have conflicting signals because you still need all of that prevention tooling. You need to make it more difficult to get in. You need to make it, you need to kind of make the walls really high, but then you also have to prepare for what happens when they get over a wall or under a wall, whatever analogy you want to use. And I feel like more and more of the people that we speak to are cognizant of that, and they recognize the need to invest in a detection and response and have a post-intrusion strategy and plan, but yet most of their investment dollars is still on the prevention side. So that piece has yet to catch up to the thinking.
Now, Mike,
Mr. Carr. Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say that, I also don't think that organizations should become complacent, right? Just because we haven't seen any action coming out of Russia, I have a feeling this is a strategic move on their part, right? Number one, they want to limit the escalation because they know it could happen if they attack a NATO country. It could put Article V on the table where, they collaborate and they have a mutual defense. They didn't do a whole hell of a lot against Ukraine's critical infrastructure because their military folks needed that in order to gain access and really make a move in Ukraine. I'm always afraid that the shoe is going to drop, right? And that as we're becoming more and more complacent, we get caught, we get caught, not expecting an attack. So, I would warn folks, do not become complacent. Just because we haven't seen anything yet does not mean, some level of an attack. I mean, there's telemetry showing that Russia's still probing, right? I mean, we see that. We see that threat intelligence.
I think you bring up a really good point in that when it's a nation-state actor, they operate at a much longer time horizon. And I'll use remember the Sunburst SolarWinds attack. That one, they were in there undetected for almost a year. It took a very long time before they actually took any actions on objectives and actually tried to take advantage of that backdoor to further move their way into organizations. And we're kind of all accustomed to the cybercrime ransomware news cycle, and those are businesses. That's ROI. So they're looking to get in and exploit and then get their money as quickly as possible. So I think you bring up a very good point that we're used to the kind of quick news cycle that is the cybercrime world, and now we're talking about an actor who measures outcomes in potentially years, not short-term ROI type perspective.
Exactly, and that's my point, right? I think in 2015, when Russia attacked the 3 utility companies in the Ukraine, they were in there for, I think they said, for 6 months. There's like 6 months of dwell time before they even started doing any type of action.
Yeah, I think you really have to look at what's the intent, right? I mean, what's the strategy and the long-term goal, right? So if it's actually escalating, I think you'd see that as a much more instantaneous result. But if it's typically more long-term, you're going to see that built out over time. And as you said, Jason, I mean, it's going to be a much longer dwell time, right? Those 6 months or longer dwell times where somebody's actually trying to capture and gain information. It's not an escalatory event in a conflict. And I think right now, if we saw things that had immediacy to them, I mean, that would definitely probably be viewed as an escalation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the moral, Mike hit the nail on the head. Don't fall victim to the news cycle hype. Know that it could still come, right? And it's most likely going to come. As I don't see sanctions getting pulled off of Russia anytime soon. And desperate times, desperate measures, right? So as those sanctions hit harder, those desperate times will come.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and I'd say that if your goal is to do damage, that's a lot higher of a bar than just your goal is to encrypt some files or ransom somebody. So you need to spend a lot more time, in the landscape. You need to understand backups. You need to understand fail. I mean, you have to do a lot more legwork to be ready to quote unquote take action.
So let's use this 6-month timeline for a second, because I'm going to ask you for some guidance. So let's say, knowing what they did in Ukraine, it's a 6-month window. We're 2 months into the war, right? Which means we got another 4 months. Is this an opportunity for organizations to actually get the guidance in place? And if it is, what can they effectively do over the next 4 months to be in a better position if we do see the other shoe drop, as Jason said, right? 4 months from now, is this an opportunity for people to get prepared? And if it is, like, what are the immediate steps they could take to be in a better position 4 months from now?
I think CISA did an excellent job summing it up. I think a lot of the stuff is there, improving your defenses, doing some of the things you should be doing, and also upping your game on detection and response. And that's not just my, vendor pitch. That's straight in the guidance. And, look, from our perspective, getting in while difficult, is just the first step. You land somewhere in an environment, then you have a sequence of actions you do next. You're going to do reconnaissance. You're going to move laterally. You're going to escalate privilege. You're going to establish persistence. You're going to do a sequence of things that could take you months before you complete them. But every single one of those steps is going to involve a lot of unusual and unexpected network activity. And so while you're up against a very sophisticated adversary, you actually have a lot of opportunity over a potentially long period of time, because the adage is, well, the bad guy just has to be right once and you have to be right every time. But you can flip that and say, well, the bad guy has to evade your monitoring every time and you just have to catch him once. And the more time they have, the more actions they take. If you have your detection and response in place and covered, and you have a pretty good chance of picking up something out of the ordinary, that if you pull on that thread, you might just uncover that next shoe before it hits the news.
Yeah, because when I look at the guidance, I can go out and remediate my critical vulnerabilities. It says vulnerabilities in general, but I would say your critical vulnerabilities. But if they're already in, that doesn't necessarily help you over the next 4 months, right? Yes, I could go enforce multi-factor authentication on my systems. Can I effectively deploy that in the next 4 months such that it thwarts a component of the attack? Because that's what it would be if they're already dwelling in the environment. Versus, hey, if I had network detection and response in place and I started to understand what was communicating on my network and I can start looking for these outlier anomalies, does that give me a little more bang for the buck in the short term? Because if they're already in and hanging out, collecting intel and doing reconnaissance, maybe that's what I need more. That's why I'm asking the question in kind of a weird way for you, Mike, almost is can I really be effective if they're already in with some of these tactics versus, needing that detection response because I got to look for that anomalous behavior because it's too late. They've already breached the gate.
No, you're right. I mean, I'm obviously a bit biased here, but we've also seen this with our customers. I mean, the network is the one area that nobody can hide from. For them to do any of the follow-on things that they'd like to do, they have to traverse your network repeatedly. And there's a lot of other instrumentation. There's a lot of technology out there. Everything has its strengths and its weaknesses. But in terms of if you want to pick up a sophisticated nation-state actor who's already intruded somehow and is now kind of progressively moving along their plan, network-based detection and response is hands down the best defense you have for that specific scenario. And that's the scenario that we're all very concerned about right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the other advantage to the network is when you look at industrial control systems, operational technologies, where you want to minimize disruption. You can't necessarily deploy agents in those environments. You can't necessarily force vulnerability updates, right? ICS and OT are a little different beasts. Anybody who's worked in those spaces know And one way to look for and protect those environments is to look at the network and the network traffic and the network protocols that are running in those environments to look for some of those anomalies and malicious behavior, because that's going to give you a better indicator of what's going on than going, I'm just going to I'm going to push a bunch of patches, or I'm going to deploy a bunch of, not in that environment. You're not.
No, but in that environment, I would say what's just as important is that IT-OT interface. The kind of the most famous, if you will, was the Colonial Pipeline attack last year. Nothing happened on the OT side. But if you take down a pipeline's billing systems, which live on the IT side, you get to take out the quote-unquote OT operational side of the environment without actually touching it. Because if you're an actor, that side is also much tougher to get into.
Sure.
Yeah, and I don't want to just focus on critical infrastructure here either, right? It's a scenario where anybody in everybody's organization could be a target. They're looking to attack supply chain. I think CISA came out with not only critical infrastructure, but defense organizations, defense manufacturing, defense industrial, financial organizations are being probed right now. So if you fall in that supply chain, you really got to make sure that you realize you are a potential target here. If you're in the nexus of that supply chain, I don't want people to feel safe. That they're not going to want to attack me. Who am I? I'm just a manufacturing company. Well, if you're in that supply chain, you're a target.
I think it's true. We live in a very interconnected world, and it's what is that? I think it's the butterfly effect is the word, where that one small piece, one small cog in a really big machine can have an outsized impact that nobody's aware of until something happens to said small piece.
That's right.
Yeah, and Jason, what we've seen in a lot of our research is we're seeing a ton of responses from the manufacturing side, because I think they are now realizing they're part of the attack chain. Like, people are going after them. And we've seen a lot of uptick in manufacturing responses to a lot of our research surveys, because they are very interested in these different areas. They're trying to figure out how to protect their manufacturing cycles, how to protect their supply chains, et cetera. So I think the good news is we're seeing good engagement with the manufacturing side of the house. But to your point, let's not just focus on the critical infrastructure. Right. Anybody and everybody's potentially a victim here.
And that's it. And I mean, we've been hearing a lot from CISA. We actually had, President Biden come out within the last month and a half. But you want to know what? Even before that, over the summer, Secretary Mayorkas was on one of the Nightline shows and basically warned every single organization in this country, every vertical, every business, that cybersecurity is a shall for your business these days, not a should. So this has been a conversation that I remember the administration coming out probably in July and just dropping the gauntlet there, right? It's a shall now.
Right.
They've done a very good job for months of kind of raising the profile. But Shields Up, I mean, we're doing a Shields Up assessment. Quick plug: if anybody is interested, you can visit ExtraHop's website, and we'll happily have a conversation with you about one. But it has been the best reaction that I've seen from customers to kind of government guidance. They get it. And I'm not just talking about critical infrastructure, smaller companies, the ones that you wouldn't think are as in tune with this stuff. When they hear Shields Up, they're aware of it. They've digested it. When you offer something that can potentially help with Shields Up coverage, they want to hear about it. They want to see it. The reaction has been swift and almost universal in our customer base.
That's great.
Yeah, and there's some free cyber hygiene services available from CISA. Sounds like ExtraHop's doing some Shields Up assessment. And look, folks, the guideline's pretty easy. You go to CISA.gov/shields-up. The guidance is right there. It's right on the webpage. Breaks it down into these different sections that we've kind of been highlighting today, and gives you links to some of the other resources to really help organizations prepare themselves for what Jason says will eventually come. So be prepared. Mike, any last final thoughts on this topic?
I think we've covered the basis, if I can, from ExtraHop's perspective, and CISA's, monitoring and having a handle on your network and understanding what's unusual or unexpected is key to quickly detecting and stopping an intrusion. And that should be top of mind for everybody. And companies like ExtraHop are very well positioned to help in that aspect.
Awesome. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
No, it was great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
If you want to learn more about ExtraHop or how to protect your organization against cyber threats, please visit securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. We'll take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.